Hi, I'm Brodie. I'd like to welcome you to my shop. In behind the camera is Mitch, as usual, doing a great job. Thank you, Mitch. And today we got a few things going on. I got the reamer finally. It came a day late, so it missed the last video, but this is the reamer that's gonna ream out the oil-light bushings in the swing arm. So this has to be modified. It needs a handle, it needs a guide. We'll do that. In the meantime, what's new? Well, I got more stuff. Let's have a look and see what we got. Oh. Metal. Magura levers. That's nice. It's not even Christmas yet. It comes from a place that sells Boltaco, so he gave me some stickers. Actually, this one sticks to stuff. Yeah, it's a magnet. This one's a decal. This one is marked fragile. Let's see what's in here. Oh, brushes. Look at all the paint brushes so I can detail emblems. And if I look at the packaging, Mitch, it's from our good friend Eve. Thank you, Eve. That's a lot of brushes. I was not expecting that many brushes. That'll keep me going for a while. All right, here's the big heavy one. Let's see what's inside here. I think I know what it is, but I wonder how you open this. I think this one might have come from England. The fork, okay. Fork bushings. It did all come at once. I ordered it off of Greystone in England, and I ordered the fork tubes and the bushings all at once, and then I got an email saying that it's coming in separate packaging, and I thought, what the heck? But no, it's not separate packaging. So there's the new fork tubes for the cub. Maybe we'll just check and see if they're the same length as the old ones, because the old ones are right here. Look at that. That's a good sign when they're the same length. Happy about that. All right, that's our show and tell. So we're going to move on now to modifying the reamer. Thank you for coffee. Appreciate that. So this reamer is made in India, but I've had other reamers that are made in India and they seem to work just fine. So I got some metal over here, so we're going to start to cut metal. We have to make a handle, a T-handle, and a guide, and a tapered pilot that fits in the other side. So we're going to be on the hacksaw, the lathe, things like that, and the mill. So I've got metal here. This is cold roll. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, and I got a couple reamers as well because we're going to be doing a little bit of reaming, aside from the reaming of the swing arm bushings. So we'll start by cutting. Okay, that's the end where the handle goes. We're going to drill a 1/2 inch hole through there in the mill. So the other end has to fit onto the reamer. So it's already got a hole in it from something else. This is part of the fixturing I used to build my elevator, in case you were wondering. This part of the reamer has to go in there. That's going to be the handle. So if I measure this, got 554. So we need to bore out. I'm going to put a small boring bar in there. I do have quite a small one. I'm going to wrap the reamer so I don't hurt it. So that'll get forced on there a little bit more, and then a little TIG weld on two sides. Don't have to weld it all the way around. Okay, so that worked out fine. So now we have to work on the other end because we got to put a pilot in there. So we have the pilot, we have the handle. Let's go drill the hole at a 90 so that we can put the shaft in so we can turn it. I always thought reamers had to be run really slow, and then I found out years later that no, you can run a reamer quite fast. So I don't know where I got that idea from when I was young. So that was 900 RPM, but you can go faster than that too. That's a good fit. Okay, so if you're wondering what's going on, I've increased the size a little bit. I got my brass hammer, and this will become a little bit of a force fit, and then it won't slide when I'm using it. See that? Okay, here we go. Yeah, so that's not going to come out now. Just a couple little taps, that's all. There you go. So we have to go to the lathe now. We need to make a cone, a very slightly tapered cone that goes into the bushing. So do you see what's happening here? Here's the swing arm. So the reamer goes in like that, and it starts to ream. Can you see how that moves around? It's going to be very hard to keep it right in the middle. So that's what the cone does. It keeps it right in the middle, and the two sides get reamed in line with each other. So 1.5 degrees or something like that. There we go. Very small taper. I used my reamer that was slightly damaged, but that works fine. That's a good fit. So, okay, we can start reaming now. This is a big step because once the swing arm is reamed, it can get painted, and then the bike can get mocked up. So, I'll just take off the burr here. So it's exciting for me. Okay, so that's the first cut. This is, see, I got an S and I got an L. This side is slightly smaller than this side here to start with. You can see it cutting. On a reamer, you always go clockwise. You never go backwards. If it jams, you wiggle it slightly. So this is a very sharp reamer because it's brand new. That's nice. See, it's fully supported. So it's nice about this system. So when you're adjusting a reamer, I wouldn't do any more than a quarter turn at a time. So that's a quarter turn. And then you tighten it up like that. I don't have to put any lubricant on here because this is oil-like bushings. It's self-lubricating, which is nice. That didn't seem to take out a whole lot. You have to do both sides at the same time, almost. So it's just going back and forth until we get to the right size. I got my plastic hammer. If I give it a little tap, it just wedges that in. But it's not in super tight. When you're reaming, you want to go in incrementally. You don't want to push hard. You just want to, you can go around fast as you want, but you want to go in incrementally. It's a bit like reaming a seat tube on a bicycle. I've had a little bit of experience. I think this worked quite nicely. Of course, I'm partial. Okay, final fit. That's what we want. See that? It's a thumb press fit. So that means it's either 2 or 3/10 of a thou clearance. That's what I was taught, because I used to do wrist pins and rods, and when you could press it in with your thumb and it just goes in, that's 2/10 of a thou. All right, thanks for watching that. We're going to move on. We're going to move on to muffler ends. I did some work on that, so clear up the bench, have some lunch, work on muffler ends. We're going to work on muffler end caps. So we did this one a couple weeks ago, and it seemed to work okay, but it didn't have enough of a radius at the top here. So what I did was I put this, call this a die, I put this back in the lathe and I took it down another 1/8 of an inch. So that seemed to work out. So we ended up with this. So I made this end cap. This end cap is made out of mild steel, but I like the shape, and when that gets welded and filed and sanded, I think that's going to look pretty good. We've got a 1.25 inch hole. I had to figure out how to hold that in the lathe. I'll show you that too. So first of all, we got some stainless steel. I'm marking out the middle. We're going to go over to the mill, put a hole saw in there and cut the middle out. That's next. And then we'll go back in the hydraulic press and watch the power of hydraulics. It's pretty impressive, really, how much power you can get in a press. It gives you a lot of ability. You can ruin things, as I found out, but hopefully this will make a nice piece. Air hose does two things. It blows out the chips because they don't always have a place to go, and it cools the cutter a little bit. Air cooled. That's an air cooled hole saw. As this presses, this has to slide because this is being forced in there. So I put a little bit of grease in there. It's white lithium grease. So we'll see how that works. So that'll be centered like that. Okay, so let's go over and see how this works. There we go. Okay, it makes a nice job. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to peel off this. This is all greasy. This is the plastic coating that they put onto the stainless. Yeah, that's quite nice. This is just kind of rough. Let's go do a little forming. We're going to move the edges around. I might have left a little extra on there, but let's go check it out. I got my trusty body hammer and I'm trying hard not to choke up. That is choking up. So when I was doing the one yesterday, I even thought about having a piece of red electrical tape and always having my hand behind it, but I don't think I have to go that far. So let's see what happens here. Oh, this is definitely harder than the mild steel. I think that's probably okay. What we have to do now, this has to be flat. So it gets turned in the lathe. And I made up this, can you see? It's just a piece of aluminum. See how it's relieved a little bit? So when I put it on here, if you look inside, can you see there's a small gap? Very small gap in there. So it's putting force on the outside here. So it's clamping on the outside, not here. So I figured this all out yesterday when I was in my shop. So that's what holds it, and then I hold it in the 3-jaw chuck here. This is just like a big nut. Okay, let's go to the lathe. Alright, so this is going to be harder to cut than the mild steel, so I've slowed the lathe a little bit. Let's see what happens. So that's what it looks like, and it's got a burr because the tool was rounded. So I take the file and I'm just filing off that. There's a lip. Can you see there's a lip there? I'm just taking off that lip. Okay, so this is a little bit, it didn't bend in as much as the mild steel, so it's a little bit bigger. I don't think that's a problem because we can file it down. Let's just see how it compares. Can you see how the stainless one is just a little bit bigger? Well, if I machine off a little bit, see, it's on a radius. If I machine off a little bit more, just a little bit, it's going to get smaller. So we're going to do that once more. We're going to just take off a little bit. Okay, that's better. It's not perfect, but it'll file up fine. So we have to bore out the hole now. So what I figured out yesterday was I hold that in the chuck when I started to bore, but you're only holding on a very small point, and it kind of squishes. And it started to move on me, so what I did, I took the tube, same size, and I put that into the 3-jaw. And then I'm clamping on this. This tube, even though I got to go inside, it stops this from moving because it has to press this whole thing. So that's the solution I came up with yesterday. So let's go back to the lathe. Come on, Mitch. So I put this in like that, and if you see, if I just do that, it's only holding on a very small amount, and this is somewhat flexible. So when I put the tube over top and I tighten it, they're both basically the same size. Then the end cap, it can't go anywhere. And that is a good fit. So we'll take it out, and then we're going to do some welding. Okay, so next thing is, how do we hold this so that it's really central? I do have a trick that I'll show you. It's called masking tape. That's what's going to hold it central. So I'm going to wrap masking tape around it, and then I'm going to use an X-Acto knife, and I'll cut out 3 sections, and that's where the TIG tack goes. So once I've got it TIG tacked, that'll be good. Okay, so that's held. So if I press that tight, that should be pretty good. Okay, so on these 3 spots, that's where I'm going to do my first tack welds. And it should be lined up as best as it can under the circumstances. Got to get the tape off now before it gets all gooey. I'm going to put some tacks in between, and then we'll weld it all up and see what happens filing it down. Okay, full circle. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm using this larger file to go up the curve, and then I'm using a small file. It's a little bit finer, and I float it on the top, and I take off that little bump. See, it doesn't take much at all. And then I'll do a little bit of sanding. So let's Let's just see what happens here. I think the muffler's going to end up having a satin finish to it. I'm not going to put a high shine on it. It's going to be a little bit like the paint, like the black paint. So I got 80 grit right now, and I'll probably go down to 180. But this just gives you an idea of the shape and what it's going to look like. I just went round halfway, that's all. I'll finish up the rest later. I'm happy with that. If the whole exhaust system turns out nice like that, it'll be good. I'm going to show you what else I got. I got a couple other new things. I got the U-bends. This is what's going to be the exhaust. So maybe it's a little hard to see now, but this is what comes out of the cylinder head. Then it flows into this large 6-inch radius stainless steel. Getting bends made, not cheap these days. I won't tell you how much, but not cheap. Believe me when I say not cheap. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you learned something. We had a good time, right, Mitch? Anyway, you take care. If you buy us coffee, we'd appreciate that very much. Thank you. Take care. See you next week.